Ahoy! And welcome to the Boating Hour with Captain Rick. The Boating Hour brings you the latest and greatest essential information about everything that sails, floats, or motors upon the high seas of Southern California. From landlubbers to old salts, there'll be something for everyone. So climb aboard and get ready to sail with Captain Rick.
Ahoy out there, and welcome once again to the Boating Hour. I'm Captain Rick, and I want to thank you for joining us here on AM 870. We're here every Saturday at 4 p.m., and please be sure to visit us on the web at theboatinghour.com. And now all over social media on Instagram and Facebook and Rumble and YouTube, the Boating Hour with Captain Rick. Thanks to our sponsor for our show today. For a healthy gut, the best probiotic on the market, Livia One Probiotics, natural, organic, and allergen-free. And from Southern California, actually Central California is where our sponsor is based. I want to wish everybody a happy Rosh Hashanah as we enter the high holidays for the Jewish community. So I want a wonderful, happy holiday and a good new year for everybody out there listening. Today is Rosh Hashanah, but I have a special guest. Back is my good friend Sean, Captain Sean. I want to welcome you back to the Boating Hour with Captain Rick. Thanks for joining me again today.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. It's always great to join you.
Well, I was so excited, actually, when we talked to hear about the things that you've been doing since you were last on the show. The last time you were on the show, it was so exciting that we actually talked about you getting away from COVID. Instead of going for a month, you went for 6-8 months and went all the way down the ocean and came back. And that's when I first had you on the show. And then you had a famous boat, Willie Horse Boat from what was her company name? I forgot.
It was Mare Sail Company, and the boat's name was Heolani too.
What happened to that one?
I sold it. I became really, really good friends with the person I sold it to, and he bought another catamaran, an updated carbon fiber kind of 2.0 of Heolani. So he's got that on the market. If anyone wants a beautifully restored, older design catamaran, it's available.
No kidding. Well, just email Captain Rick if you're interested. She's a famous lady. She was here when the marina was built. Her husband and her, they're Marico Sales, right? The Marico Sales.
Mm-hmm.
And
Marico.
Yeah, they were iconic legends here. And she is the founder of the Marina del Rey Historical Society. I've had her on. So kudos to the Marina.
Willie.
Yeah, Willie's amazing. I see her from time to time. And it's really wonderful what they've done. And they're in the Fisherman's Village. You can see them during the week. The Marina del Rey Historical Society. So wonderful. And I go to her fundraiser every year. All right, let's update with you, Sean. Tell me about your new boat and what you're doing, and then we'll talk about I guess you were in some yards in Mexico. So yeah. What's the new boat?
Well, I bought this trimaran in Ventura. It's a really, really good build. It's a Horseman, and normally Horsemen sold plans, but this one in particular, they actually did a manufacturing of it, factory built boat up in, I believe it was in Seattle. Anyway, it was built for some German man, and he sailed it around the world. It's a hardcore blue water boat, tri-layer, fiberglass, foam core, glass again hull, so it's super strong. Anyway, I bought this after I sold Heolani 2, and we just decided we needed more space after living on the boat for about a year. And so this one offered a wider beam, about the same length. It's 45 feet long by 24 beam. And after owning it for a year, and Marissa being sick a couple times down in the galley, which had no side windows, only had port windows above you, hatch windows, she kind of in a roundabout way persuaded me to do something with the boat to make it more livable. And so after smoking some really great weed one night, the whole dream came available. I saw the whole boat build, and lo and behold, I'm pretty tenacious. I got online, I found the composites I needed, and I drove up to Spokane, Washington. I picked them up. I brought them back. I sailed the boat 2,000 miles down to Mexico, a place called Guaymas, If you haven't heard of it, it's right next to San Carlos. It's about 250 miles past the Arizona border on the mainland side, not the Baja. So I sailed the boat here. I got back up in a plane, train, automobile type thing. I got back to L.A., spent the holidays, came down with a custom-built trailer with all my supplies and went at it. And right now we just launched a YouTube channel that just came available. I'm on episode 2 right now. So if anyone wants to see it out there, it's called, you can type in Growing Seaweed Trimaran or just Seaweed Sailing, SEE. That's how we spell it. Anyway.
Oh, seaweed. Oh, got it. Okay. That's wonderful. So YouTube, and I'll put a link up on the Boating Hour on my site, theboatinghour.com, to look at it, because I saw your episode 1 and it's spectacular.
Thank you.
Tell me about putting together the YouTube channel, because we just started ours. So the Boating Hour with Captain Rick is up on YouTube as well, and I'm gonna have to friend you and link to you on the website. But let's talk about your project with putting this up on YouTube.
Well, yeah, it's been a long time coming. We've had tons of footage. So when we had Iolani, Marissa came up with the idea to start a YouTube channel, and that was a while back. So we had a lot of content all pulled together, but never got to it. Always seemed like day-to-day life got in the way, and to edit, as anyone knows, it takes a lot of effort and time. And I tried it a couple times, so I knew any kind of video would take hours. So long story short is, finally got the time. After the build's not complete, but it's about 95% done. So right now, I've finally been able to spend a few moments, and I really got into it. Now I'm on, I've edited 6 so far, and I've got to do 1 or 2 per week. So I'm really on it. But to get a channel going, it takes a little bit of know-how, and I watched a lot of videos on YouTube of how to do it. So that's a really good resource, I'm sure you know. So whatever questions you're having on how to develop your YouTube channel, how to market it, that's a fantastic resource.
I hear the kids in the background. Let's talk about your furry friends, because you're living with quite a family. I don't know how you do it.
Hey guys, stop it. Anyway, yeah.
It's okay. It's adding some flavor to the show. Tell me about your doggies, because when you were sailing on Ilani, your previous catamaran, and you put a lot of nautical miles on there, you had little Coco, one little doggie, and now you've upgraded a little bit, and you've got a whole family. Where did you find all these little puppies, and how do you manage on the boat, with so many doggies?
Well, it wasn't by design, believe me. That was not my intention, to go down to Mexico and all of a sudden have dogs everywhere while I was building a boat, which that became kind of challenging, but overall it's well worth it. So it turned out that I got down to the boatyard and I was eating at this small restaurant just off the boatyard every day, and there was this gorgeous little puppy one day, just all bones and maybe 6-7 weeks old, just wagging her tail, trying to get food off anyone there. And there's tons of unfortunate dogs out there that are on the street and they have food. Oh, it's so sad. It breaks your heart. So after 5 times or so being there, I called Marissa, my fiance, and I said, hey, well, what do you think? I put her on FaceTime, and she said, definitely adopt her. So I adopted her and made that part of the boat. And then Marissa came down a few months after. She had to stay back in L.A. for some personal reasons. Hey, I'm on the phone, okay? Stop it. Anyway, so she came down a few months after, and ironically, she found a Chihuahua, a beautiful white little Chihuahua we named Bella. And then a block away after she picked up Bella, here's a little puppy crossing the street. And, of course, she saw that as a sign, so she grabbed the other one, and she named him Pickles. And these were 2 that were just going to be adopted by others she knew in L.A. So she said, don't worry, we're not going to have 4 dogs. We're going to take them up, and they'll get adopted. Lo and behold, we fell in love with them, and she persuaded me to have 4 dogs. So now we've got 2 big and 2 small.
Wow. Okay, so Bella and Pickles, you picked up while your boat was in the yard in Mexico? Is that what
No, actually, the one bigger dog that really was a cute little puppy in that restaurant, her name is Lucky. Her 6 other brothers and sisters, the restaurateur, they knew that they were around the corner there, and there was a bunch of puppies. And he said to me one day, all the others have died by passing cars here.
Oh,
I was like, really? So she's the last one. And so that really got me over the hump to adopt a dog. And so I adopted her. So she was the first of our 4. And then Marissa came down and she grabbed 2 more. and it turned out to be permanent. So now we got 4, and Marissa, believe me, she wants to put more on the boat. It's a
Oh my God!
my design of this boat could handle more potentially, but it's tough to have 4 dogs on a boat is unheard of. To have 5 or 6 would be lunacy, I'm sure. By
Sean,
anyone.
you're going to have to slow down on the doggies. But
Yeah.
I tell you, because you're going to be sailing, you might have some bad weather. What's Mexico like? It's amazing. I know people that race. I've talked to people at a lot of boat shows, and I got quite a few friends that go down to Mexico. And even during the lockdowns of the pandemic, as things started to open up, they tell me how wonderful it is in Mexico and how welcoming the locals are when you're in the yards and in the ports. So did you have that experience when you're sailing or being in the yard in Mexico?
Yeah, 100%. The only time we felt like we were maybe unwanted was right when COVID started. We happened to be on the Baja side around Loreto. And I remember one time that we were walking up the street to go get some food at the local grocery store. And as we were approaching people, I could see parents shoo their kids inside the house and close the door. So we're like, wow, we're aliens. Everyone thinks we're going to bring the plague or something. So that was a little shocking. But other than that, very, very welcoming. The Mexican people as a whole are just super nice. I mean, they're great family people, and they really enjoy life. They live for life first and foremost, while Americans work first and foremost and do whatever they can to live after paying bills. It's almost like that.
Yeah, it is interesting, but I hear such amazing stories. Of course, if you turn on the news, you only hear about the cartels and some of the tragic things that happen. But when you talk to people that sail and race, and there's some wonderful races. So are you pretty predominantly sailing up and down the coast, or have you gone to Hawaii yet?
Well, on one note on what you just said, so I was down here a few years back on another project, and I actually met El Chapo before he went into the American jail.
You're kidding. Wow.
No. There's a restaurant here in San Carlos that's a higher-end place. Long story in 2 seconds. This guy I met at the bar, he happened to be a very influential person, and that night was very interesting because the owner said he met El Chapo once here a long time ago, and the guy said, I grew up with El Chapo. Hour or so later, here walks in his 2 other brothers who are also heavy hitters down here. They were having a meeting in the back of the restaurant at this big 12-person table. And a few minutes after, here's El Chapo and 2 other people who knew the guy that I was with because he said he grew up with them. He pulled him off the bar. They kind of wrestled, played a little bit. And then the guy was so polite, the one I knew, he introduced me to him and his 2 bodyguards, I guess. He knew all their names. And after he walked away to go to the meeting, he leans over and says, "You just met El Chapo," and he called him El Cheeto when I was actually introduced. So basically the rule is this: if you're not in the drug trade and you're not competition, there's nothing to worry about. I mean, you would probably have better odds to be hurt in LA. So that's kind of how it is down here.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that many times, and it's the same with our drug community, unfortunately, because I really want to see after school programs thrive for the kids and see if we can get sober up our kids and get them doing some wonderful activities. Last week I had a wonderful guest that sailed on Transpac to Hawaii. You ever think about doing a Transpac to Hawaii in your new, because your new catamaran, how tall is your mast?
Well, it's a trimaran, and off the deck my mast is 52 feet. So what I basically did, if anybody knows the Neel trimaran out there, it's NEEL. It's a trimaran brought to a catamaran kind of attributes. It's got the up roof with all the windows. Catamarans have normally been the best boat out there to party on and sail because of all the up space. The galley's
Right.
up, seasick. So Neil brought the trimaran to that type of level. So when I saw that, I was just like, you know what? I finally figured out what I want to do with this boat. So I redesigned the whole thing. Some people think it should have been a 6-8 year project. I knocked it out in 1 year with my crew I had down there on cheap labor. I mean, the yard alone is a whole story. How inexpensive, say compared to Marina del Rey, it's like 95% less to do a project down here.
Right. It's really, you go to the local places, but of course, the clientele that they have is able to afford it. So I guess you really, but you're really decking this boat out. I'd like you to think about the next Transpac and sail over there and compete with the Captain Rick, the Boating Hour logo.
Well, I don't know if I'm on competition mode anymore. I've got basically a floating houseboat pretty much by all intents and purposes, but it's a great boat. It still will be pretty fast. I can probably do 8 to 12 knots on average. So it's still a trimaran, but it's not a racing trimaran by any means.
Are you still a windsurfer and surfer? Because isn't that how you started out? Weren't you a windsurfer and surfer?
Yeah, back in the day, I opened up a operation right there on Mother's Beach back when I was 16 years old. So that was like 1980, 81. And I had that whole beach to myself for years where I taught windsurfing. And then it evolved into kayaks, and then I got a surf shop in Malibu, and I had 4 surf shops, and then it got into manufacturing kayaks. I owned a company called Malibu Kayaks for years. I sold it in 2012, and then I got really into playing with cars and boats, and that's kind of what drew me to where I'm here now in Mexico.
God, that is so exciting. Well, what are your plans for the future? Are you have you gone through the Panama Canal yet?
No, I haven't actually. That for sure is a trip. Marissa is really pushing for us to sail eventually over to South Africa. So if that is the case, we will be probably going through the Panama maybe in a year or two. Who knows?
Oh my goodness, to sail over there just recreationally. I guess your tri could handle the big winds too, right? I mean, how would you fare when you're passing through Florida, and how would your boat do in the heavy winds?
Well, you know what? It's still the jury's kind of out. I just went through 2 storms in Mexico, which currently I'm right now talking to you from Mexico. So I'm in a hurricane zone, and we just had Hillary come through, and I was on a mooring, and it was crazy. I had 60-mile-an-hour winds at least. And I got hit by lightning. I got zapped because I was holding my dinghy outside, and a bolt hit just outside my boat on the water. It was the trippiest thing. I saw a ring in the water with a bright light with a hole in the middle. All of a sudden, I go, ah! I got nailed by the lightning that hit the water. So it's pretty crazy down here. So hurricanes and all that. But testing my boat, so those winds, there was a giant haboob. If you don't know what a haboob is.
What is a haboob?
Haboob is crazy. We just had one here about a month or so ago. It's like a microburst hurricane, but it's short. But a haboob comes off the desert. So we saw this giant wave of brown cloud coming towards us. So we walked the dogs really, really fast. We came back to the boat. All of a sudden, we got hit with a sandstorm with 60-mile-per-hour gusts, and we were on the mooring as well. And all of a sudden, pouring down rain. It lasted about 3 hours. And local people in town here who I knew, they thought I would be up on the beach because their homes got ripped apart. It was a 42-year phenomena. And so that's a haboob. A chubasco is very, very similar. It's a microburst, but they usually last, not as long in general, but they come off the water. So you don't deal with the dust storm at first. And a hurricane, as you know, it can last, 10, 12 hours easy in one spot you're at. So we went through that with Hillary, and that lasted about 3 hours of hell. And then once the winds dropped to around 25 or so knots, I just went into the cabin, undressed, changed, and dove in the bed, and that was it. And I woke up in the morning hoping for the best.
God, that is exciting, especially since you're so comfortable and not worried. I would be, I think I'd be on pins and needles. I don't think I could get a good night's rest. Are you going to be in Marina del Rey in October for Halloween?
Well, unfortunately, we're in hurricane season, so I really can't move because the only way to get up to L.A. with a boat, well, I could leave the boat, but unfortunately, for some reason, probably El Nino or whatever, boaters got freaked out, so the people who do stay on their boat normally all year round ran to the yards, and the yard that I have nearby, I thought, you know what, maybe September is really rolling the dice. I should get out of the water. I called the yard. I called 2 yards. They're full. So we're going to have to bear it in the water, and hopefully no major storms coming our way anymore. And if that works out, the best and earliest time we could get back to LA with the boat would be after hurricane, so we could sail up in December, January. Normally, I've done the batch 3 times, and that's from Cabo to LA to Marina del Rey. And that's been 3 different trips, and I've done all 3 in June. June I found is a great month. July is good too. August is even good because then you might get some wind behind you, which is great.
I mentioned that because there's a Halloween parade in Marina del Rey. So how about you try to make it up here, and we'll dress the boat up, and I'll stand on the top of the mast and wave my hat. We're having this is the second annual, and I had the organizers. There's a big Halloween parade coming up. Of course, there's the Christmas parade, which is, one of the nicest parades of all the marina. Marina del Rey does a really wonderful job, for the holiday parade. But there is going to be exciting events all over Marina this year. They've pretty much in Marina del Rey, they have finished a lot of the construction and the renovations and the upgrades. So we were both, we saw that decade long where the Marina del Rey deteriorated, and they've done a wonderful job. I mean, it looks nice. The slips are in. All the are open. And the yacht clubs, surprisingly, during the COVID and the lockdowns, it was one of the only places to go and, bring your kids out for activities and get out on the water. And I tell you, the yacht clubs did real well. There was a surge in participation. Most of the clubs saw an increase in membership. So a lot of activities going on in Marina del Rey. They've absolutely done a wonderful job. Let's plug your YouTube station again.
Growing Seaweed, or Sailing Seaweed with SEEWEED, like seaweed. The boat's painted green on the hulls, and there's a concept behind it, or I should say behind it. Also, Marissa is really, really into dog rescue. After our experience down here with all these street dogs, we brought dogs up to LA. They got adopted in Malibu and all that. So she's hell-bent on really taking care of all these little doggies down here. But so the YouTube channel is kind of a idea that we can develop, we can grow the boat, which that's why it's called Growing Seaweed.
Got it.
Yeah, it's also part of a growing weed or whatever, too, because she's really, really into THC, and I become a real advocate, especially when, I didn't know what to do with this boat. I really didn't. We owned it for about a year, and I couldn't see it. Smoking some really great weed, all of a sudden.
I can't be promoting that on the radio. I'm a sober. I'm the designated driver and a sober captain, but I do go to a chiropractor that gives me a patch on my back, and it's a lot of therapeutic instead of the lidocaine injections. And so I am an advocate of some of what they're doing in the medical field. But that is wonderful.
Well, in America alone, I just read in 2022, THC sales topped $32 billion. So there's a lot of people involved in this. And what the older people, which I kind of fit into that category as well, is that when we were young, we smoked whatever we got, and we got paranoid or this or that. There's so many strains right now that do specific functions for health and for anxiety and all this stuff. It's amazing what you can get out of it. Even Einstein, who is touted by many as being an amazing person, he dabbled in all kinds of drugs, cocaine, pot. He loved pot. He said it really, really opened up his capacity to think further. So it's interesting what's really coming out of this space, Yeah,
it's a lot of changes have happened, and I am an advocate of medicinal and some of the research that's going on and getting people off of a lot of the
opioids.
Yeah, the opioids that we have a problem with, and a lot of the pain medication. We've had a lot of different problems. Well, this has been wonderful having you on, and I want to keep tabs on when you're sailing. I'd love to push you to get into some of the races, get you going to Transpac. It really has been wonderful having you on the show, and let's put a link on my site to your YouTube station. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I'll be up next year. I think we'll probably be up there by late spring, and we'll do that for sure.
That's wonderful. Well, that's all the time we have for you today. I hope you enjoyed our show. As always, we're so very fortunate to have such wonderful and exciting guests, certainly active guests. Most of our guests that come on the show, very active in the boating and sailing community. And let's not forget the Coasties, protecting our waters, America's lifesavers and guardians of the sea. Remember, if you do it right and follow the guidelines and safety precautions, there's no place like being out in the water in the fresh air and sunshine in beautiful, sunny Southern California. Here at the Boating Hour with Captain Rick, we cover everything that sails, motors, and floats from San Diego to Santa Barbara. Thanks for being with us today, and please be sure to join us next week and every Saturday at 4 p.m. on AM 870. Thanks to our sponsor for the show today, For a Healthy Gut, Livia One Probiotics. Don't forget to visit us on the web at theboatinghour.com, and now all over social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble, the Boating Hour with Captain Rick. This is Captain Rick saying ahoy and fair winds to all.